start, just to let everybody know, and people are still logging in. Today's session, somebody said they can't hear me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Today's session will be recorded. So if you aren't able to stay on for the entire session, it will be recorded and we can send the link out to all the participants. And we definitely want to ask that you keep your mics muted during the entire time. There may be a chance at the end where we do Q&A where they may allow it to be interactive and ask you to unmute your mics, but we just ask for the sake of while the presenters are presenting, if they can, if you can have your mics muted. Also, we will be sending out the slides to everyone after. So if you give us a few days, probably early next week, we can send out the slides and a link to the recording. So we'll get those out to everyone. With that said, we still have more people logging in. Yeah, while the presenters are presenting during the session, if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in the chat. We have several Ptac counselors that are on the call or are on the presentation. And so we'll see if we can definitely get those questions answered while the presenter is maybe at a break during their specific segment of today's session. With that said, okay, we've already started recording. So with that said, I want to, good morning, welcome everybody to today's session. Today is Wednesday, March 17th, and today's webinar is the anatomy of teaming and joint venturing. Today's webinar is being brought to you as a result of a collaboration between the U.S. Small Business Administration, the Columbus District Office, and the Ohio University Ptac. And today's session is a part of a government contracting series that we collaborate with Ptac every year. So on a monthly basis, we do have a training where we focus on a contract specific topic. And then we either have presenters, we have a panel discussion. So today is part of that series. So as I said, we're going to kick this off. And my name is Shonda Harris, and I'm a business opportunity specialist with the Columbus Small Business Administration. The other BOS will be presenting Jill Nagy-Reynolds. After me, we'll kick off our webinar with giving an overview of Ptac, who they are, and the services that they provide. I'm sure some of you that are on the call are Ptac, are already signed up with Ptac and you're already members, but some of you may not know what Ptac, the type of services that they provide. And Ptac stands for the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. So after me, we will have an overview of teaming and just the basics of joint ventures by Billy Grill, who is the Dayton Ptac counselor, followed by Mentor Protege, the Mentor Protege program, the SBA Mentor Protege program. Jill Nagy-Reynolds will be presenting that, followed by an overview of joint ventures and just kind of sharing some of the highlights. I will be presenting that. And then at the end, there'll be a Q&A kind of discussion with the current mentor and protege partnership. And Jill will be facilitating that session. And then we will be wrapping it up and having a Q&A session at the very end. But again, if you do have questions during someone's session, you can go ahead and type those in the chat. Without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Billy Grill. Billy, you can take it away from here.
Thanks, Shonda. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time out today to learn a little bit more about teaming, how business relationships evolve, mentor protege, and joint venturing. We'll start off with a quick overview of what the Ptac does and how we support the state. You'll see some numbers up here, some metrics, but really it's about the Ptac helping small businesses and some large businesses market and navigate the nuances of the government space, and that's federal, state, and local level. Basically, we help small businesses overcome that intimidation of doing business with the government and go through a soup to nuts program, starting with getting registered, getting your certifications, developing that market research, and developing those relationships in order to succeed in the government space. It is a highly competitive space, but at the same time, the government is probably going to be one of your best clients. They always pay on time. They always have more work. And you have to remember, even though it's guided by the federal acquisition regulation and a lot of contractual language, still very much a relationship-based business. And that's sort of where this joint venturing and teaming conversation comes into play. You'll see our mission. I explained a lot of that in the last slide, but really we provide our clients some guidance and advice on how to do business with the government, how to navigate some of those issues that are unique to the government space. We also add some other value-added services such as bid matching, which is an email to your inbox every day on bids that are tailored to your services and products. And we also do a lot of market intelligence. My personal background is in market research and business development in the government space. I've spent the totality of my career working for small businesses in that space. So I'm really, really in tune to how to do that market intelligence, how to show you who's buying what you're selling, how to let you know who's competing with you and who's going to be a good potential teammate, prime contractor, subcontractor, et cetera. One key thing is our services are free to all of our clients. We are funded by the DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency, and that started in the Ptac program started in 1985 and has since helped a numerous amount of small businesses get their first government contract, win large bids, go from small to big. It's a great service that is just really, I think, a best kept secret in the government space. So getting down to the teaming conversation, what is a team? And the Defense Contract Audit Agency defines that as an arrangement between two or more companies, either as a partnership or joint venture to perform a specific contract. The team itself may be designated to act as a prime contractor, or team members may be designated to act as a prime contractor, and the other members designated to act as subcontractors. So basically what all of that says is a team is two companies that are working together to perform a task. And that could be as a prime and sub arrangement. You could go with 51% and 49% arrangement, or it could be a 80-20 arrangement. Either way, you're basically just getting together to perform the requirement and, sorry, loss of words, basically fulfill a contract. So in the government space, it is, especially the federal space, almost a priority to find good teammates and build those teams, especially as a small business, because you're going to be competing against large businesses, other small businesses, 8As, set-asides. There's just a plethora of competition in the government space. And so to find a good team that can perform successfully together is really important to win government contracts. So the advantage of teaming, basically you're going to work on strengthening your weakness. I love using a document when I'm bidding proposals called Requirements Traceability Matrix. And basically what that does is it breaks down every objective in that proposal, and it lets me know where my company stands in bidding that. Am I strong? Am I weak? Do I have no experience? And then that will tell me what I need to add to my team in order to best propose to that RFP and possibly win the work. Finding a teammate that is complementary to your services, that you know, like, and trust, that is strong in their past performance, that adds a ton to your RFP response. And really, you can't bid proposals, at least any decent proposals, without having that relationship with another teammate. Like I said, it increases your relevant and recent past performance. Relevant and recent is a good term to describe what the government deems as a sufficient past performance. Really what they're looking for is past performance that is similar to their organization, similar in size, scope, and complexity. And it has to be relevant and recent, meaning within the last 3 to 5 years, and relevant as in having to deal with what they're currently bidding. And it's really important for you to have that past performance because it's an evaluation criteria when you're bidding this work. And the government will review all of that past performance. They'll call the contracting officers, they'll make contacts, they'll check your CPARs. They want to know that you've done something similar before because that reduces the risk in awarding the contract to you. Well, when you team with somebody, you are able to add their past performance to your proposal. So really you're filling your past performance requirement with yours and another strong performers in order to increase your chance of winning that bid. So again, I mean, it's really important to get those teammates and create those relationships with companies that are complementary to yours, that may even compete with you sometimes. In the government space, it is definitely a normal situation to team with a company that you just competed against on a prior proposal. We call them almost frenemies, but really competitive teammates. And so I wouldn't hold that against a company if they bid against you on a past proposal and keep that from teaming with them on a future one to win work. And it also helps you strengthen your industry relationships. I like to say that the government space is a large industry, but a small valley, speaking of the Miami Valley, because it really is, it's a small group of companies that work with these different government agencies, and end up teaming together and competing against each other. They all tend to go to the same luncheons. They all tend to go to the same industry days. So you'll get to know the industry if you go and participate in some of these events. Teaming also helps you compete for set-asides. Set-asides in the government space are basically a way for small businesses and other socioeconomic and service disabled companies to have work set aside for them specifically. So if I'm just a small business and there's a woman-owned set-aside that's coming out for a project that I have a lot of good past performance in, well, then I want to get with a woman-owned small business that I know and trust and like, and try to subcontract to them on that work. That way I can lend them my past performance and they can compete as the prime because it is set aside for them. Set aside goaling ranges from 23 to 3%. And you'll see it in every agency. And it's really a great tool to make sure that small businesses and other set-aside categories get their slice of the pie. It is always a best practice to create relationships with all sorts of diverse businesses. You definitely want to look at who has similar values, who has complementary services, who has the same type of industry as you in order to be most effective, but definitely also look at what their set aside category is. It also helps you with IDIQs. IDIQs are big blanket purchases. They're called indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. In the defense space, we call them hunting licenses. Basically, it gives you a blanket contract to get small purchase orders or larger purchase orders put against. In order to get these IDIQs, you have to have a range of capability. And I don't think there's any one small business that could realistically perform every capability that they mandate on these IDIQs. So in order to win some of those bigger contracts, it is imperative that you either team with another small business and subcontract to them, or if you're priming, you need to build a team of multiple small businesses that are capable of performing the work. And it's definitely a great tool for growth if you can get onto an IDIQ, because it's a marketable contract that contracting officers and different agencies can put work against. So it's a great marketing tool, but in order to get there, you definitely need to build a pretty robust team. And finally, the R&D opportunities, the small business innovation research and technology transition. They're grants and contracts given by the government for small businesses to do research and development work. And in order to get some of these opportunities, it's a mandate that you partner with research institutions and universities, mostly on the STTR, but it's always looked well upon in the cyberspace as well. So if you're looking to do some R&D work and you're looking to get into that space and look at some of this cyber grant money, you're going to have to team as well. And it's going to, again, be companies with similar capability, complementary capability, or research universities, institutes that are capable of helping that specific topic that you're bidding. This is one of my favorite slides. This is basically your business development quad chart. When you start in business development in the government space, this is usually what you're briefed. Basically, you only have 4 ways you can possibly grow as a company. You can grow with your current client and your current capability, your current client and your new capability, current client, new client and current capability, or new client and new capability. These are the only 4 quadrants that you can really grow your business. And I have set up just a couple of different notes here. For the bottom left-hand quadrant, when you have a current client and a current capability, you don't really need a teammate. You already know the client already likes you, you already have the capability, but you can definitely still use that to your advantage. You can use that to increase your industry relationships. So say that I work at the EPA and I do a lot of IT work at the EPA, but I want to do work with the VA. Well, I know my buddy that does work at the VA. So I say, hey, Tim, yeah, I'll give you a slot at the EPA for, for some IT work and you can sub to me, but how about I sub to you at the VA? And therefore you're increasing your capability. You're now getting past performance with the VA and you're helping Tim get past performance with the EPA. And it really increases that breadth and scope that you can do work with. You can also increase your capabilities. So if I'm working with a client and I'm doing, say I'm doing plumbing, but I have no HVAC work whatsoever. So what I want to do is I want to pull in an HVAC expert onto my contract to help my current client. And by doing that, I'm going to put an apprentice under that HVAC expert. to learn that trade. So therefore, I'm really pulling in some additional capabilities to my contract. The client's happy, but I'm also having resources that are learning new trades, new capabilities, and that way both people win there as well. And it really helps when you're working with a client that knows and likes you. They will want you to grow that contract and radiate that growth. With a new client, your current capability, it's always hard to break into a new client's organization. They want you to have that knowledge of their values, their mission, their vision, their technologies, their overall processes. So in order to increase that client base, similar to example A with increasing industry relationships, you want to work on teaming and building those teammates with a broad client base where you can work with subcontracting and building past performance and experience with a variety of new clients. It is definitely difficult to break into a new organization. I work with that every day as a Ptac counselor, where somebody has a plethora of work with the Department of Justice, but they can't just seem to break the egg with the Department of Defense. And that's where teaming comes in, partnering and subcontracting to get your foot in the door in order to create that client past performance where you can eventually prime. And new client and new capability. And in business development, we call this the Golden Quadrant. This is basically where you want your company to be in the next 5 years. And really to do that, you have to have that vision and that investment in the upcoming, the what's next. In order to do that, you can utilize the Small Business Innovation Research Grants, the STTRs, internal R&D. You can look at a variety of different resources for that. But in order to do that and increase your opportunities in that space, teaming is definitely valuable. Teaming with, UDRI, University of Dayton Research Institute, or teaming with a Cornerstone Group who does a ton in the SBIR space will definitely increase your odds of getting that SIPR grant funding and discovering that new capability, discovering that new client base. Now that we've discussed the why you want to team, and really doing business with people you know, like, and trust, it's a given. It's natural to us. We should want to do that, and it definitely is a best practice when you're a small business competing in the federal space. That being said, okay, how do we find teammates? And I know I sound a little bit like a school grade teacher here when I say make friends. That's really the key of it. You want to network. There's an industry association for basically anything and everything from contract management to IT to engineering. If you have an industry, there's an association for it. But here's the key. Don't just go and get a membership. You need to participate. You really do get out what you put in. For example, I'm very heavily involved with the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association. I'm involved with FASTR. I'm involved with the PTA at my kids' grade school. I mean, it really does help to go participate, meet people, learn what they do, be engaged, and that's really how you'll create those relationships. Another great way is attending industry days and small business events. On beta.sam.gov, which is where all your government opportunities are posted, you have a small business events tab that you can click. And you can also search for different small business events and events types using beta.sam.gov. If you ever need help searching for those events or or searching period, don't hesitate to drop me an email. Fairly adept at using that as a tool. But attending those events, asking questions, not only helps you market to the customer, but you also have to remember that you're marketing to potential teammates as well. And using that, I know we're in a little bit of a different world right now with the pandemic and everything being virtual. But once things do get back to at least a new normal, then you'll be back at these events in person, engaging, having those sideline conversations, getting a coffee, grabbing a bite to eat. That's really where you create those relationships to find new work, find new teammates, find new capability, find what's next. So those are definitely important. I send my clients industry days and small business events often because even if they're not going to wholly bid on the opportunity, the chances of them getting good information to share with others and also making relationships is very high. You can also research. Some great research tools here. The SBA hosts a couple of them. Using the dynamic small business search, you can search for companies based on set aside, capabilities, keywords, just a whole plethora of different criteria. And I also tend to use usaspending.gov a lot. I like using the user interface on that because it shows me geography. It shows me a great drill down of the company's total contract awards, their top 5 NAICS codes, their top 5 agencies that they work with, which really helps me when I'm looking at potentially reaching out. Here's my note to people that are using the research method to reach out to potential teammates. Do your legwork, craft a thoughtful and informed email when you're reaching out. Let them know that you have done your research and you know that their top 5 agencies that they work with are the EPA, DOJ, DHS, et cetera, et cetera. And you can always attach your capability statement to that introductory email to let them know that you have a value prop for them. And that will increase your opportunities with that company. Hopefully they respond, and if they aren't the right person to contact, they put you in touch with the right person. But the same thing goes with potential clients as well. When you're doing this research, you definitely want to do that legwork up front and craft well thought out and informed outreaches to those folks. There's also the interested vendors list in beta.sam.gov. I will give you a bit of caution using that for competitive intelligence because the companies, the incumbents, the people that are familiar with the customer, they're not going to put their name on that list. They don't want you to know that they're bidding. That just adds to competitive intelligence against them. But some of the smaller companies that are looking to break in just like you might. And when you click on being an interested vendor, it gives your capability, company, and contact information. So it's a great way to quickly look by opportunity which companies are interested in potentially teammates on that list. Another great resource, and I may be biased, but it's your local Ptac. I help introduce companies all the time that are of complementary services, similar values, in order to create those strong small business teams. We're at Ptac, we're invested in your success. So, of course I'm going to make an introduction. I'm going to do whatever I can to help connect you to the best possibilities. Your other resource is your small business offices and programs. In the government space, every big agency has an office of small business programs or something similar, usually a liaison, small business specialist, small business director. They're great resources for information and advocacy. Their prime mission is to advocate for small businesses. So they can definitely give you some information on potential teammates and potential companies that you may want to get in touch with in order to do business in that organization. Because like I said, it's hard to break into an organization, but having a great teammate or advocate, yeah, it definitely helps. Another great resource is your clients. If you do good work for your clients and they like you, they're going to let you know who else is doing great work for them that they like as well. And it's just kind of natural for clients to want their vendors to succeed. And they'll be a great help. You know, your clients are your best cheerleaders sometimes. So definitely keep open dialogue with your clients, and you know, be blunt. Ask them, you know, who else is doing great work with you, and they'll tell you. This is the screenshot of beta.sam.gov. And if you guys haven't used this yet, any federal opportunity over $25,000 by public law has to be posted to this website. So if you are interested in contract opportunities, if you're interested in different COVID funding, you know, this is really the website that you need to sign into. But there's a great little tab under contract opportunities called vendor collaboration and small business events. Now, vendor collaboration isn't that great because basically it sends you to every opportunity that has interested vendors. So that doesn't really help. But small business events definitely does. And there's different ways that you can search that. But when you get into an opportunity on beta.sam.gov, as long as you're signed in, which you have a basic sign in with login.gov, you create that, and then it gives you a sign in to beta.sam.gov. And if you need help with that, feel free to contact your local Ptac. We help with that all the time. But once you are signed in, with any opportunity, there's an interested vendors list. Basically, you just click down into that list, and then this is the information you're going to get back. You're getting contact, address, their duns in their cage. You'd be surprised at how much information you can look up with a simple duns and cage code, but you can get their last contracts, you can get their capabilities, you can get a ton of information about the company. And that should inform you as to whether or not you want to reach out to potentially team. But that's definitely a helpful place for you to go and not just get teaming intelligence, but get competitive intelligence, but start growing your network and really growing your base. This is a little handy chart I like to keep. Basically, it's how a business relationship evolves. Yeah, everything starts with a handshake, and I personally call that handshake your capability statement. Your capability statement is a one-page document, and it lays out really what your capabilities, your differentiators, your value proposition is. So whenever my clients email somebody, I make sure that they have that capability statement attached, because that really is your handshake in the government space. But a handshake does mean a bit. For instance, I've had relationships with business partners and colleagues for over a decade, almost two now, where we'll do a handshake NDA. And I'm not recommending that to anybody. But for me, it works with, you know, clients that I've known for that long that are actually really close and really trustworthy. But outside of that handshake, definitely get a non-disclosure agreement in place. If you're talking about any trade secrets, any technology, any customer relationships, it seems so simple, but it is pretty vital, especially when bringing up the point earlier, your teammates can be competitors at a later date or at a prior date. So having that NDA in place is definitely pivotal in that business relationship. I will warn you though, if you are a startup and you have, you know, what you see as, you know, groundbreaking technology or process. If you're meeting with a venture firm, don't request an NDA before you meet, because they will look down upon that and see that as being fairly cocky. Instead, get some protections on your IP itself and work through that process of trademark and copyright. I've seen that before in the cyberspace, and you know, it's better to just protect the IP as in general instead of requesting an NDA from somebody who you want money from. And after the NDA comes a Teami agreement. Teami agreements can be fairly short and simple. If you're teaming on an IDIQ, probably a little more complex. But a Teami agreement is a great tool to say, yes, we are going after this work together. Yes, I will support with my past performance, my resumes, my personnel, do everything I can to make this team succeed. And yes, we will move forward with work. Great agreement. And all of these are legal documents. So have your lawyer look over them before you use them as a template. I'm never a fan of pulling something down off the internet that you don't understand and sending it out to people to review. So definitely get that legal aspect straight before pursuing these. And then the next step is your Teami agreement with a Schedule A work share. Schedule A is basically just saying, yes, we're teaming on this work. When we win this work, I'll give Tim 38% of the positions, and I will make sure that he gets these, these certain labor categories. So it basically lays out your roles and responsibilities for fulfilling the requirements. The Teami agreement prior does the same thing, but it doesn't state a percentage of work. So I can have a Teami agreement, and I won't say I've had this Teami agreement before, but we'll say a Teami agreement with one of the big 5 contractors, and you lend them your past performance, and they win the work. And then when they win the work, they decide to fill all the positions and not give you any. Even though you lent them the past performance, you helped them bid the work. If you don't have a work share agreement, technically it will rub the customer the wrong way. And it's not a good way to do business, but it does happen. So if you don't have that good relationship with your potential teammate, you might want to look at a work share agreement. And sometimes that's a big sticking point. That can definitely rub some people the wrong way when you're building that relationship based on trust and working together. After the Teami agreement, and this is some that Jill and Shonda will get into, is your mentor protege program. Recently expanded into the all small mentor protege program. A great vehicle for you to work with another company and learn about some of their business processes and get help from them, both internally and externally. You'll see that I put a little drop down into a joint venture. I did that because technically a joint venture is another entity. So you're creating a third entity at that point with your 2 companies. And then after that, of course, is the merger or acquisition. And that's basically, 2 companies becoming one company. You're either merged or you're acquired by another entity. You become the same. In the law's eyes, you all are one. Your past performance, your personnel, your resumes, your business processes, all the same. So that's really your evolution. But again, it all starts with a handshake. And that's really where you want to look at when you're teaming, is creating those handshakes. Put yourself in the scenario to succeed. And that means going to industry events. That means networking. That means doing your legwork, doing your research, and really putting that planning together.
Billy,
Yes.
It looks like we have a question that's come through on the chat. Do you mind
Oh,
answering it?
certainly.
It looks like two that have, someone asked, is it wise to post on Facebook, business page or LinkedIn and mention that you're looking for a teaming partner or you want a joint venture?
Ooh, joint venture, I would be wary of because and you know this, Shonda, in order to do a joint venture, you really want to be certain that you have that relationship. So coming in cold to do that, I'd be really hesitant. Yeah, if you're looking to have a conversation, I don't see an issue. Social media is a great tool. It's a great way to do outreach and to learn about others. Yeah, to have that conversation and jumping into a teaming agreement or a joint venture or anything is definitely something you want to hold off on until until second bullet point here, until you know, like, and trust that other. And that's kind of where I'd keep that. I'd keep social for creating opportunities, handshakes, maybe a coffee. But anything from a teaming agreement forward, I'd hold off.
Okay, thank you. We do have another question. It starts off with a comment. I believe you were talking about the work share agreement, and Tiffany said that you made a great point. And she had some issues with the teaming agreement in the past, and where they had a teaming agreement, but it didn't have a work share agreement. Needless to say, the deal went sour once the prime won the contract. And she's asking, could you share a work share template? Do you have a work share template that you could share?
Yeah, I can get one. I've got one from a previous contract that I did that I can share. But again, my advice is templates are good as a base. You definitely want to have your lawyer look over that before you share that with anybody, because you want to understand what you're sending and you want to understand what the implications are. Templates are great to basically set that foundation so that you're not paying a lawyer for 10 hours to build the whole thing. But at the same time, you definitely want a lawyer's opinion on that to make sure it fits your company and it's good for and right for you. And there's the good thing about that is there's a ton of great legal in Ohio as a whole. I think we have some of the best government legal expertise in the country, personally. Is that we good for the questions? Perfect. Here is my last slide. Teaming hints and tips. Really what this is about is creating relationships, making friends. And those should have the objective of being long-lasting relationships built on trust and integrity. To begin that relationship, we always urge you to have the best capability statement and briefing, because that really is your handshake. That's how you're explaining your value proposition. And that's really how you're introducing yourself and creating that first impression. So be professional, be clear, focus on your differentiators. What makes you different than any other guy coming off the street that wants to team with that company? And that really does set the table for your ongoing conversations. People do business with others they know, like, and trust. Do what you say and say what you do. It's pretty simple. This goes throughout business. And if you guys, you guys want to be successful in certain areas, it all starts with doing the right thing. And that means, if you have a teaming agreement with somebody and you win the prime work, give them their due share. I don't think that that you'll last long if you burn those bridges. And do your research and bring your value. This all starts with investigation and legwork up front, and whether that's with industry association, with USA Spending, with Dynamic Small Business Search. It starts with making the effort, and you'll get out what you put in. So definitely contact your local Ptac if you need any suggestions on how to start that process. Use the tools that are linked in this briefing, and go out and make friends. Really, that's what it comes down to. But definitely have that, that documentation and that backing when you get into that Teami Agreement stage. And that is all I have for my presentation. Again, thanks everybody for coming out on this St. Patty's Day and joining us, and hopefully it added some value.
Thank you so much, Billy. And now we are going to hear from Jill Nagy-Reynolds. It's going to be sharing about the Mentor Protege program. And let me pull up the slides for Jill.
All right, I can see the slides. So I will go ahead and get started. Shonda, can you hear me? Billy,
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. All right. I just want to say thank you to Billy. That was an excellent presentation. It's true when people say you want to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are. Like I really feel as though I've learned quite a bit today. Even though I've been in government for a long time, it's just, that's why events like this are so important, is that we can share ideas with each other. So I am going to talk about the SBA Mentor Protege program in case, well, and also because it's one of the ways that you as a business can partner formally with another business. So the SBA Mentor Protege program is a business development program. So we're going to talk briefly about the program benefits, eligibility, some of the changes to the program, and also recommendations in finding a mentor or a protege. Billy went over a lot of that in terms of how to find a mentor or a protege. The takeaway that I got from his presentation is networking events, industry days, the handshake, getting to know each other, all of those strategies is really how it's done, and just giving yourself some time. So could I get the next slide, please, Shonda? So what is the benefit? What are some of the benefits to the SBA Mentor Protege program? As I mentioned before, it is a business development program. So proteges can receive business development assistance from their mentors in several areas. So SBA has put out guidance for the types of assistance that proteges can request. So SBA mentions, for example, guidance on internal business management systems, such as accounting, marketing, manufacturing, strategic planning. I would say in construction, a lot of it is bonding or estimating. So then in addition to that, it could be financial assistance, assistance in navigating federal contract bidding, that is big, acquisition and performance process, education about international trade, business development, including strategy and identifying contracting and partnership opportunities, or also general administrative assistance. And Shonda, it looks like, oh, they want the full slide view.
Okay. Let's see if I can do that.
And what I want to say, in addition to the suggestions that SBA gives here, you can also, as the protege or as the mentor, identify additional business development areas that you wanted to build into your mentor protege agreement. Okay, next slide, please. Can I get one more forward? Okay. We get this question a lot at the district office. The mentor protege agreement does not allow businesses to bid on federal contracts. Like when you have the mentor protege agreement signed and approved by SBA, that again is the business development agreement. You can't use that agreement to bid on contracts. You would need to form a joint venture agreement. So once a mentor and protege have come together and they've gotten a joint venture, a mentor protege agreement approved by SBA, then they can form a joint venture agreement. I will say, however, if it is two small businesses that are entering into a mentor protege agreement, then they can still form a joint venture agreement without that being approved by SBA, because a mentor protege agreement can be between a large business and a small business. And in that scenario, then you would have to wait for the mentor protege agreement to be approved in order to form the joint venture, because large businesses and small businesses can team together to form a joint venture agreement and bid on small business set-aside contracts as long as the SBA mentor protege agreement has been approved in advance. So it's a very beneficial program to the protege and the mentor. So if once the mentor protege agreement has been approved and the joint venture agreement has also been formed, then the joint venture agreement can bid on any federal contract that the 51% owner of the joint venture is qualified for. So for example, if the protege is a 51% owner of the joint venture and that protege happens to be a small business, an 8A business, a Hubzone business, woman-owned small business, or service-disabled veteran-owned small business, that joint venture can be used to bid on those set-aside contracts. Next slide, please. Okay, to qualify as a protege, your business must meet the definition of a small business. Your size is determined by your North American Industry Classification System codes. It should be your primary or NAICS code. Your primary NAICS code should be where you are currently generating the majority of your income. So businesses can self-certify as small inside the system for award management. SBA does not provide a small business certification to businesses. You actually self-certify within SAM. So you have to meet the small business definition with the SBA. You have to have a proposed mentor prior to applying for the program. So all of the planning that Billy mentioned in his presentation, just really getting out there and meeting potential mentors, that is the way to go. And as you see here, when we say have a proposed mentor, so really the SBA would like the protege to be leading this relationship. So when a decision is made to form that mentor protege agreement, we really would like to see the protege being the lead. The protege also must be organized for profit or as an agricultural cooperative. And this is very important that all proteges need to keep in mind. You cannot have any more than 2 mentors in the lifetime of the business. So there has been a slight regulation change to that, and I have a slide dedicated to it, so I'll talk about it on a later slide, but there is a new rule that says that if you have a mentor-protege agreement with a company and you did not receive any material benefit and you did not form a joint venture agreement with that company, if the relationship is 18 months or less, then you can dissolve the agreement and it doesn't count against that 2 mentors for life. Next slide, please. Okay, now I put a lot of information on this slide because I actually had another presentation with this, but I wanted to condense the number of slides, so I just kind of jammed them all on here. Since we're going to be sharing the slides, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, okay? But to qualify as a mentor is any concern that demonstrates a commitment and the ability to assist small business concerns. Then they may act as a mentor and receive benefits as outlined in 13 CFR 125.9. I love sharing SBA regulations with businesses because really that is what implements and guides the program. The more that you're aware of the regulations that govern these programs, the more informed you are. And that is really what we try and do, is give you as much information as we can, but we also try and break it down into doable parts. So in addition to that, to qualify as a mentor, your business must be organized for profit, and you cannot have any more than 3 proteges at one time. I will say that SBA, yes, while we allow for more than 1 protege at a time, we don't want those proteges to be forming joint ventures with mentors that'll be competing after the same contracts or the same geographical region. Mostly SBA is looking for proteges that may be in different NAICS codes that will be competing in different geographical regions, so that there's not, unfair competition between your proteges. SBA will decline an application if we determine that the mentor does not possess good character or is in a favorable financial position. So there are some eligibility requirements that can be hard to overcome, but for the most part, SBA really wants to be able to approve these relationships. So once approved, if SBA finds out that the mentor or protege no longer possess good character, then SBA can terminate the relationship. So next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to, for SBA to allow a mentor to have more than 1 protege at a time, they have to demonstrate that the mentor-protege relationship will not adversely affect the development of either protege firm. So just like I mentioned before, the second firm may not be a competitor of the first firm. A mentor that has more than 1 protege cannot submit competing offers in response to a solicitation for a specific procurement through separate joint venture agreements. But to me, that makes sense, because then, if you have a mentor with 3 proteges and they have 3 joint venture agreements and all 3 of those joint venture agreements are bidding on the same contract, then that could adversely impact the other joint venture partners. So a mentor generally cannot have more than 3 proteges at one time. However, the first 2 mentor-protege relationships approved by SBA between a specific mentor and a small business that has a principal office located in Puerto Rico do not count against a limit of 3 proteges that a mentor can have at one time. The little nuances of the regulations I always find very interesting. Okay. All right. So in order for SBA to approve the mentor-protege agreement, I will tell you, at the district office of which I am a part of, we do not approve mentor-protege agreements. That is done through SBA's portal, the Certify web portal. That is where the application process starts. You will have to upload the required documentation for the mentor-protege agreement through there, and then it will go through an analysis in headquarters at Washington, D.C. They have a mentor-protege team there that is dedicated to reviewing and approving mentor-protege agreements. So in order for SBA to be able to approve the agreement, the SBA must determine that the mentor provided assistance will promote real developmental gains for the protege and not just act as a vehicle to receive federal small business set-asides. An SBA determination of affiliation must not exist between the mentor and the protege. The SBA must determine that the mentor provided assistance will promote real developmental gains for the protege, not just act as a vehicle to receive. Okay, I seem to have repeated those. Okay, next slide, please. Now, this is not a matchmaking program. As I mentioned before, the protege must have identified a mentor before applying, or the mentor has identified the protege. SBA does not connect businesses with each other. We do, however, on a one-on-one basis, if we feel like in my role as a business opportunity specialist, if I'm meeting with a company that's actively looking for a partner, and I know of other companies looking for partners, then yes, I'll do that informal introduction. But in general, there's no list that we have there. It's through our events. Really important. It's through the events. It's through agency events, industry days, networking events. Once we are through the pandemic and we're able to start in-person networking events back up again, I think that will make a world of difference for you to be out there meeting each other. So that is coming. Okay. So when you apply, again, SBA, the businesses must be approved by the SBA to participate in the mentor protege program. I'm sorry, I saw that question. So what's the difference between the all small mentor protege program and then the other ones? And it's now called the mentor protege program because the all small has been combined with the 8A program. There are still some separate agencies that have their own mentor protege, but that is specific to their agency. The SBA mentor protege program goes through is for the entire all procuring agencies. So, and it's also backed by Congress. The other mentor protege programs are not backed by Congress in the same way. It's more of a universal program. Okay, so for approval, businesses must have a current SAM registration, and you have to apply through SBA's certified portal. So before you start the application process, be sure that both the mentor and the protege have active SAM registration. So on an annual basis, you have to go into SAM and recertify. So just make sure that you've done that before you submit your application for the mentor protege program. Know the primary NAICS codes of the protege and the mentor. Both businesses must complete the SBA's online, and I have all small, that should be the online mentor protege program tutorial that's located inside of the certified portal. I think it's an hour-long tutorial. It's not a huge time commitment, but it just goes over what SBA's goal is for that program. Protege companies must have a business plan that created that agrees with the mentor protege agreement. And I think, Shonda, that might be one of the program changes if I remember correctly. I'm not sure the business plan is required anymore.
It's not. You're correct.
Okay, so we have to take that out. We had training last week, and I see that I didn't update that slide. So that's great news for the candidates, that you don't have to create a separate business plan. Okay, and then you create and agree to a mentor protege agreement. So there are templates for those. I'd be happy to share a template with anyone who is interested. Next slide, please. Just keep in mind that I worked with a firm last week that they had their mentor protege agreement denied. And if you get denied, it is not the end of the world. It essentially, SBA is saying, hey, fix this and send it back. So it's just understanding what they're asking for in that fix it letter. So in the case of the firm that I worked with last week, they didn't put a timeline in their mentor protege agreement. So really important to getting that mentor protege agreement approved is when you are defining the assistance that you are looking for, you as the protege, when you're defining the assistance that you're looking for, put a timeline in there. So if you want help with, or if you're looking for assistance in the area of finding opportunities. So when are you going to meet with your mentor? So that mentor can impart that knowledge to you. Are you going to meet with them weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is? So that's one of the big things that I see, is not putting a timeline in there. But also for the actual mentor protege agreement, the term of a mentor protege agreement may not exceed 6 years. So that's quite a bit of time. If an initial mentor protege agreement is for less than 6 years, it may be extended by mutual agreement prior to the expiration date for an additional amount of time that would total no more than 6 years from its inception. So it could be extended for an additional 4 years by consent of the two parties. If the initial mentor protege agreement was for 3 years, it could be extended for an additional 3 years by consent of the two parties, unless rescinded in writing as a result of SBA review. I love legalese. Boy, it just takes me down into the abyss. The mentor protege relationship will automatically renew without additional written notice. So essentially you can have the relationship for up to 6 years. Next slide, please.
And Jill, those templates are on the SBA's website for
Okay.
the
On certified?
on the website. Yeah, no, on the SBA.gov. If you go under SBA Mentor Protege Program, it's in there.
Okay. Yep. It's so SBA.gov and then / mentor protege, or, you know, our website is very, very good. I go to it quite a bit. But if you have a trouble navigating it, just let us know. We can find a template for you too. So what are the rules governing SBA's mentor protege program? So a protege may generally have a total of 2 mentor protege agreements with different mentors. And again, each mentor protege agreement may last for no more than 6 years. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here are the changes, and the changes went into effect just very recently. So November of 2020. So we continue to have trainings on it. It's a final rule now, but I would say we're adjusting to that final rule. So one of the big things is, as I mentioned before, we had the rule where you can only, as a protege, you can only have 2 mentors for life. They changed that because sometimes a mentor protege agreement is formed and then there's no material benefit to the protege. So if the protege is able to demonstrate that there was no material benefit within the first 18 months, then the relationship can be terminated and it doesn't count against the 2 over a lifetime. So the final rule also added a provision that allows a protege to substitute another firm to be its mentor for the time remaining in the MPA without counting against the 2 mentor limit. That's also a big change. Next slide, please. So a mentor with more than 1 protege cannot submit competing offers. We talked about that before. So if there's one big IDIQ contract, the mentor can't use all of its protege joint ventures to bid on the same contract. So mentor protege relationship in a secondary NAICS code. Firms may seek to be a protege in any NAICS code for which it qualifies as small, and it can form a mentor protege relationship in a secondary NAICS code if it qualifies as small and has prior experience or previously performed work. Okay, the case that I had a couple weeks ago was a protege firm that was trying to enter a mentor protege agreement under a secondary NAICS code. If you're doing that, you have to demonstrate to SBA that you are obtaining work under that NAICS code that you are trying to form the relationship under. Because again, SBA wants to ensure that that you are providing more than just your set aside to the relationship. You have to have work under that NAICS code as well. Not your prime, not the majority, but some. You have to demonstrate that you do have some work under that NAICS code. Next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to that, the reconsideration process for declined mentor-protege agreements, they've deemed that unnecessary. Small businesses can submit a new or revised mentor-protege agreement at any point after 60 days from the date of SBA's final rule. A reconsideration process of 45 days was deemed unnecessary. So SBA is trying to get through these applications faster and allow more firms to qualify. So annual reviews of mentor-protege relationships. It's important that SBA receive an honest assessment from the protege of how the mentor-protege relationship is working and whether the protege has received the agreed upon business development assistance, and whether the protege would recommend the mentor to be a mentor for another small business in the future. So they're referring there to your evaluation that you need to do on an annual basis. So SBA will send you an evaluation on an annual basis where you talk about how things are going between you and your mentor. Next slide, please. Okay, and if the protege does not provide information relating to the mentor-protege relationship, SBA may decide not to approve continuation. So, and then also the final rule added a provision allowing a protege to request SBA to intervene on its behalf with the mentor if the thought is that they're not receiving the assistance promised by the mentor. If a protege firm requests intervention from the SBA will notify the mentor that adverse information has been received from the protege regarding its participation as a mentor, and then the mentor has a time to respond. If the mentor does not overcome the allegations, SBA will terminate the mentor-protege agreement. So what I don't think is in here is inside of your mentor-protege agreement, there's a section on the last page that says, the protege may terminate the relationship at any time. The mentor may terminate the relationship at any time, or the SBA may terminate the relationship at any time. But that isn't the goal of the mentor-protege program, is not to terminate it. It's for it to work and for it to be a mutually beneficial relationship. So if something starts going wrong, the only way the SBA knows is if you tell us, so that we can start working on resolving it. So we used to approve mentor-protege agreements at the district level. So I have had like mediation between mentor-protege before. I'm not sure how they're doing it now with the mentor-protege program at the national level, but just keep that communication open, definitely. And for the sake of time, I am going to wrap it up. So are there any questions that I need to answer? I'll look in the chat. I see it. Let's see. I think that's it. So how does the all small differ from mentor-protege agreements specified under DOD? Okay, I think I answered that one. All right, Shonda. Shonda is now going to talk about joint venture agreements.
Let me unmute myself. Thank you so much, Jill. And I think you brought up a great point. It wasn't on your slide, but as it relates to if individuals wanted to get out of that mentor-protege relationship, the protege can request getting out of that, the mentor can request, and then the SBA can terminate. And then proteges have the ability to do that, especially 8A proteges, during the annual review process. So I believe that was a couple slides back. Joint ventures. I think Jill brought up a great point as we're transitioning into joint ventures. When she first started, Billy laid a great foundation, just kind of talking about the basics. And everything that we're talking about, mentor proteges and joint ventures, they're tools. So as small businesses and you're looking to gain entrance into the federal market, you're looking to, maybe you've started off, you've had some smaller subcontracts, maybe smaller prime contracts, and you're looking to grow and gain entrance into some larger agencies, DoD agencies. So the mentor protege and joint venture are great tools to do so, but it does require time. And with the mentor protege, as Jill said, that is a business development tool. And joint venture, I'd like to kind of give a backdrop as teaming that Billy talked about. In joint venture is a form of teaming. Teaming is more, if you think of in the lines of dating, teaming is like exclusive dating. And then joint venture is kind of like a marriage. It's kind of like a marriage. So I'll kind of go over some formal definitions for joint venture, what it is, kind of the requirements for joint ventures, the benefits, some of the rules for the 8A joint venture. I work directly with 8A firms, and then some of the recent changes to the joint venture program for 8As. What is a joint venture? And kind of what I just said, kind of just bare bone basics. If you think of joint venture as in terms of a relationship, it is more like a marriage of two companies kind of coming together to form a new entity. So just the general definition, it is a separate legal entity of two or more businesses that come together to bid on and work a specific contract for profit through their combined efforts, property, money, skill, or knowledge. That joint venture, again, it is a separate new entity. It must have its own federal tax ID or EIN from the IRS, must have its own name, and there's some other things. But Billy kind of started off with the DCAA definition of teaming. I just kind of, for the sake of the slides, put that in there. You'll see some different nuances for joint venture relationships. After this, I'll show you what the SBA deems as a joint venture. But from the perspective of DCAA, it is an enterprise owned and operated by, again, two or more businesses or individuals. They form a separate entity that is not, hang on for a second, let me. They form an enterprise owned and operated by two or more businesses or individuals as a separate entity, not a subsidiary, for the mutual benefit of the members of the group. Joint ventures possess the characteristics of joint control. Joint ventures can be populated or unpopulated. A populated joint venture has actual employees, and an unpopulated joint venture is essentially a shell organization with no or very limited amount of employees. In an unpopulated joint venture, the work is subcontracted to the venture partners for actual contract performance. As it relates to the definition of a joint venture, how SBA views it. And as Jill said, one of the things we always have to go by are our regulations. So they always help to kind of keep us within the guidelines and keep us kind of on the straight and narrow. So based on in 13 CFR 121-103, a joint venture is an association of individuals and or concerns. A concern is just another name for business with interest in any degree or portion. It's also that relationship is intended to engage or carry out business ventures or joint profit over a 2-year period. So there is a timeline with that joint venture relationship. And that relationship is set up for the purpose of those two or more entities combining their efforts, property, money, skills, or knowledge, but not on a continuing or permanent basis for conducting business generally. A specific joint venture entity generally may not be awarded contracts beyond a 2-year period, starting from the date of award of the first contract without the partners of the joint venture being deemed affiliated for the joint venture. Now, this is based on a new rule previously, prior to November 19th of last year. There was something called the 3 and 2 rule. That's kind of on my next slide. So where, or the slide after this. So basically the 3 and 2 rule was really where if you formed a joint venture, specifically as an 8A company, you could form that joint venture, and the joint venture was good for 2 years and 3 contracts. And so with the new rules, and I'll kind of go over that later on in a couple of slides up ahead, that 3 and 2 rule was changed. So now, and that could be really huge for some companies, they're not limited within that 2-year period just to bid on 3 contracts. They can essentially bid on unlimited amount of contracts within that 2-year time. In addition, those 2 entities may create additional joint ventures after that 2-year time frame is up. If the company is going after unlimited joint ventures, then the SBA does say that that joint venture is essentially over, and they do have to form a new joint venture. And each new joint venture is a new entity, and they may submit offers for a period of 2 years, again, from the date of contract of the joint venture parties. And at some point, I left this in here, it's in the regulations, and there's some additional things, but I decided to leave this in there because Jill and I work with 8A firms, and the joint venture, again, is a tool to assist not just 8A firms, but it is a tool to assist small businesses to either gain entrance into the federal market, to expand upon their core competencies, maybe to gain past performance. But at some point, if a company is forming a joint venture, maybe they've formed 1 joint venture and it's been 2 years and they've gotten contracts, and they're looking to form a 2nd joint venture and a 3rd joint venture and a 4th. At some point, that particular company, the one that is the managing member, at least the 51% member of that joint venture, should be able to gain past performance, gain experience to where they can stand on their own 2 feet and go after contracts on their own. So that is kind of the ultimate goal of a joint venture, is to help that 8A company, small business, a woman-owned Hubzone, to eventually they can stand on their own 2 feet and go after contracts on their own and not rely on the joint venture relationship. And again, that's if companies are looking to go into joint venture, extended joint venture relationships. And then that joint venture does have to be in writing. And it does have to have its own name. And then, as Jill has said, that joint venture does have to be registered in SAM, the System for Award Management, for a prime contract. So here are some general requirements to form a joint venture. And these requirements, again, I work directly with 8A firms. And so the requirements that I'm kind of speaking of are from a federal. I also want to kind of throw in this caveat, is I'm aware that there may be individuals that are on the training that may be looking to form a joint venture, maybe go after a state contract or go after a contract maybe with another agency. And they may not be 8A, but there could be, just to know that these are the requirements for a federal. So if you're looking to do business at the federal level, these are kind of the requirements for a joint venture. And they may not necessarily apply if you're looking to do business at the state. I know the state of Ohio, they are allowing, and they are looking for more joint ventures to go after contracts. And I do believe that they look to the SBA's guidelines for joint ventures, and they do follow that. But again, these are for the federal guidelines.
Shonda, I can't hear you anymore.
Well, I'm wondering if would she
Yeah,
have lost her connection?
I think she may have lost her connection.
I think she
So,
definitely lost her connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jill, Jill, she's asking if you can go ahead and take over
Yes.
because she lost her connection and she's logging back in.
Well, the problem is she has the presentation on her end. So, I mean, I could talk about definitely joint venture agreements until until next Thursday, but I'm not sure quite where she was. Do you have the presentation too?
Jill, I do have it. Just give me a minute and I can pull it up.
Okay, and by the time she comes back on, we probably she'll have it back. But I will say the joint venture agreements are they can either be between two small businesses, and in order for SBA to determine your size, again, it's based on your NAICS codes. And then you can also have the mentor protege joint venture, which is between a large business and a small business. She was going more into the minutia in terms of the regulations around joint venture agreements. So there, it looks like we're going. Okay. Now it looks like it's slide 26, maybe. Oh, no, you're right, 24. Okay. All right, we'll just go from there. We'll just start from there. So what are the benefits of joint venture? Well, really, there's a lot of benefits to joint venture agreements. It's that businesses can come together and qualify for set-aside contracts that they otherwise may not be qualified for. And there is a collective representation of past performance, so you're able to you can combine the both businesses' past performance, and then there are you can share the costs and the resources, and you can leverage other partners' past experience and market share. So one of the really big changes, and can you go ahead and put it on full screen, Sharon, if you don't mind? This is part of the rule change of late 2020. SBA no longer reviews or approves competitive 8A joint ventures. That is huge. SBA district offices now only review and approve 8A sole source joint ventures. So that is a big change. And nor does SBA approve Hubzone, woman-owned, or service-disabled veteran-owned joint ventures. The requirement is for the joint venture partners to form the relationship and use that joint venture agreement when you are submitting on a contract, submitting on a proposal. You do not need prior SBA approval unless it's for an 8A sole source. Next slide, please. Okay, the following rules apply for 8A joint ventures. The protege is responsible for performing 40% of the cost. So I know that Billy was talking about work share. That is a very big deal. As you are developing your business relationship with your potential joint venture partner, it's good to have those conversations at the beginning. SBA will look at how much work is performed by each partner, meaning profit needs to be commensurate with the volume of work performed. So this is again in the case of an 8A sole source joint venture. At this point, I've had companies that ask still for it. Well, still, it's a brand new regulation. So does SBA have joint venture templates? We have like a checklist that we require small businesses to have in their joint venture agreements so that they're covering all of SBA's regulations. Are you back, Shonda?
Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead and I was
okay,
going to jump in after. Go ahead.
okay. But now, all we can do, like, because SBA is no longer approving them except for sole source contracts, we can point out the regulations of where, you know, what SBA requires for joint venture agreements, but we don't do any type of legal analysis of them anymore. So we can tell you where it is in the regulations. But in terms of us being able to review them anymore, with the exception of an 8A sole source, we don't do that. So this is in the case of like an 8A sole source. So the joint venture must submit an annual evaluation report and quarterly financials to the SBA. In the contracting agencies, explaining how the work is being performed for each contract. So the regulations governing joint ventures, including the changes under the small SBA Mentor Protege program, are in 13 CFR 125.8 and 13 CFR 125.9. And you can get to those regulations by going to ecfr.gov. And if you really want to know, like, step by step, I'd be happy to give you like the step by step of how to get to them. Okay, next slide, please. And Shonda, do you want to jump back in?
Yes. And I do want to mention before we dive into thank you so much, Jill.
Sure.
Modern technology. I came into the district thinking, oh, my internet's going to be secure, and it's been a little shaky today. So, but it's always great to have backup. So thank you, Jill. If you're an 8A firm and you are forming a joint venture, and I believe Jill mentioned this when she was talking about the Mentor Protege, is that if you're looking to enter into a relationship with, you can enter into a joint venture with a large firm. You can also enter into a joint venture with a small firm. If you enter into a joint venture relationship with a large firm, then you will have to enter into a Mentor Protege relationship first before you enter into that joint venture relationship, so that you as a small business will not become affiliated or take on that large companies, their gross receipts. And so you will have to form that Mentor Protege relationship prior to you entering into a joint venture relationship. So just make sure if you are an 8A firm that you talk with Jill and I for your BOS. If you're an 8A firm in another city, make sure you talk to your BOS and they can get you what you need and look at that. As far as some of the recent changes to for the 8A program in the final rule, this just happened in November, I believe November 19th. 8A firms, as Jill mentioned, they no longer need to seek the approval of getting their 8A joint venture agreement approved if they are going after a competitive award. And so this is huge for firms because typically going after a competitive award, it can be rather not only time consuming, but it can be costly. And so the SBA is really trying to be sensitive and really listen to our firms as they are doing contracting. And so they recognize they don't want to put an additional burden on the firms, especially financially, going after these larger competitive contracts. So if you are an 8A firm going after a competitive award, you still do want to let your BOS know so that we can still make sure that your information is posted in the DSPS, but as far as allowing us to approve that joint venture to go after competitive, it's not needed. You still do need to get your joint venture agreement approved before you go after a sole source contract. And I just want to throw this kind of caveat in here. It's not mentioned I don't think I have it mentioned on any of the slides, but once you are in a joint venture relationship, that joint venture relationship, again, with the new rule changes, you can go after an unlimited amount of contracts. It's not just limited to 3. But what happens once you're inside that joint venture relationship, the joint venture agreement is really just contract specific. It's specific for that contract that you're going after. So essentially, when you're forming the joint venture, let's just say you're going after a MAC contract at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That initial joint venture agreement is just good for that MAC contract. So if you're looking to go after your second contract with that joint venture, then you would need to form what's called an addendum. Even though the joint venture is approved, the addendum is a separate agreement that will be for each additional contract after that. So each additional contract that you go after, you will form a new addendum. That addendum does have to be approved before that contract is awarded. So again, you can talk with your BOS about that and make sure that you do have that approved before going after your next contract. Again, that 3 and 2 rule has been changed. I talked about that. Also, one of the changes, there was clarification that was brought to the joint ventures as far as 8A joint ventures are unpopulated, but joint ventures, again, is a tool that a lot of our 8A firms use to go after larger contracts. And sometimes with those larger contracts, they do require a facilities clearance. And so now with the new rule change, it does allow, even though the joint venture can still be unpopulated, they will allow an administrative personnel, including a facility security officer, to be a part of that unpopulated joint venture. With the new changes, it provides situations where the joint venture, Can you go back, Sharon? Can you make the screen a little bigger? It looks like it changed a little. Okay, I can still. Okay, now I can't see the slides at all.
Well, we can see you, so.
Okay, well, let me pull up because I don't see anything. So let me see if I can, I don't know if I can share. I think I'm almost finished. There we go, okay. I'm just about finished. So with the new changes, it provides for situations where the joint venture could rely on a facility security clearance from the partners of the joint venture, where facility security clearance is required of the contract. So some, especially larger IT contracts, may require facility security clearance. Prior to the change, some agencies weren't recognizing that facility security clearance from either of the joint venture parties. Sometimes both joint venture parties or one joint venture party may have a facility security clearance. But now with the new changes, they are recognizing them and allowing that. With the new changes, a protege must perform at least 40% of the work of the joint venture and cannot include work that's subcontracted to a similarly situated entity in that calculation. So that 8A firm essentially does have to perform 40% of that work on their own. Prior to this, out of that 40%, an 8A firm could subcontract some of that out to another company that was an 8A company, maybe that had the same type of NAICS code, that performed in that same type of industry or had that same type of past performance. You can go to the next slide. We're just about finished, and I wanna make sure we can get to our mentor protege example. Yep, that's it. I can't see the chat, so are there any questions? If somebody can read them.
I can see them, Shonda, and there's nothing in there right now.
Okay. All right, great. So
Okay.
Jill?
Yes, I will go ahead and turn it over to, well, first I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I'm not sure, Sharon, if there's a way for us to have them both on at the same time. Maybe if Ben, if you can turn your camera on, and Al, if you can turn your camera on, let me see if I can see the two of you. So while we're doing that, I'd like to introduce our mentor protege partners. And after this presentation, you might think, oh my gosh, how can this ever work? Look at all of the challenges and the regulations and the roadblocks to getting there. But I can tell you it does work. And there's only so much that we can do as government employees and representatives of the government to teach you this stuff. Another part of it is actually to have you talk to small businesses that are doing it. So we have a mentor with us today. It's Ben Nwanko with AWA Construction. Ben, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, and I can see you. You had to, so you ran out of time, didn't you? I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm right here.
You're still here. Okay, excellent. And then Al, are you there? Al is with CPM Enterprises, and he is our protege.
I'm here.
CPM Enterprises is currently an 8A participant, and they have been in the program. I think this is going on their 3rd year. So Al, we can start with you. Do you want to introduce yourself and your company?
Hi, thank you first for letting us be a part of this. I think this is great. My name is Albert Powell. I'm located here in Dayton, Ohio. My company is CPM, Complete Professional Maintenance is what that stands for. My background is in working on environmental side of cleanups, hazardous waste, non-haz waste. I worked at Fernault for 12 years on the federal site. So I was decontamination supervisor and cleaned up everything from pigeon droppings to asbestos. So that's my strong suit of knowledge in the government area, working on some sites and clean up, and that's what I do best. And that's what CPM does.
Very good. Can you introduce yourself? Not sure where. Ben, do we still have you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Chandra, for the opportunity to be part of this very important educational forum, I will call it. My name is Ben Nwanko. I am the owner and president and CEO of our business corporation. Our business corporation is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are construction manager and the general contractor. Typically, we've been serving the tri-states, the Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. But up until 12 years ago, we decided to venture into the federal market. And since then, we've had the opportunity through a collaboration with the SBA, and thank you guys, to do work for the government. We've worked for the Corps of Engineers in Fort Bragg when we constructed the headquarters over there. We've also worked for the Corps of Engineers once again in Fort Knox, Kentucky, where we constructed a brand new elementary school. And we've done several jobs at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And we've also done work for the Ohio National Guard, just to name a few. Currently, we are serving as a mentor to CPM. And we got into this relationship back in 2019. And I would say so far, so good. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but this is a brief introduction of who we are.
Well, I think that's excellent. Well, one of the things that I think that we get a lot is how do you make the decision to participate in the program? And that's just for both of you. And then how did you two meet? Also.
Well,
go ahead, Al.
Well, the decision to get into the program was made basically because two factors. I needed guidance, and I needed this was the best way to go, and the benefits of being in the program outweighed anything else. Going it alone is a great ideal, but when you're 2 or 3 years into a program, you're just a little sheep lost on the road. You're just trying to get to something, and you need the big brother act. So that's how I decided where I wanted to take my firm, and I want to take it where it can get some DOD work and government facility work. So that's how I did it. We met basically through a mutual friend. There's no website that says I'm looking for a partner and things of this nature. You just kind of keep your ears to the street and looking whose contracts are expiring and things of that nature. And just so happened, I met Ben through a mutual friend, and it took about a year of meetings and talking to see it just wasn't an overnight thing. Hey, I'm Ben. Hey, I'm Al. Shake hands and we're going to do this. No, it takes some vetting, and as a protege, it's just as much as your responsibility to vet who you want to go forward with. So that's a little bit of the history.
Okay. Ben, did you want to add anything?
Yeah. To add to what our rifle articulated, this was it's a slow process, and as an area firm, you want to get out there and market yourself. You want to get out there and meet people. You want to go to the Ptac meetings. You want to go to all the educational forums that SBA has put out there. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to get involved. You got to get out there, and through moving around and talking to people, that's how I met. And it took quite some time. It took close to a year before we decided that, yes, we've understood each other enough to where now we can go into this relationship. And like Chandra rightfully articulated earlier, the joint venture is like a marriage, while the teaming arrangement is like a.
I think he may push the button accidentally, but I'll finish up what he was saying there. It's like a marriage, and I thought that was a great example, because this is something you're going to be in for a while, and you don't want to mess it up, and you have to have the trust in the person that you're going to deal with. And I had other suitors, but when I looked at the end of the day, Ben was the best suitor and had the most in common, and his integrity was what's best for my company to be involved with. So that's what that came down to.
And one of the recommendations, I don't know, Al, do you have me on speaker, like on a cell phone and your computer? Because now I don't hear the feedback. Okay, that's better. With the federal mentor protege program, I also recommend that a good partner would be a company that's currently doing federal contracts if you're new to the federal government, because if you as a protege decide to do business with a mentor with no prior federal experience, and you're both learning that at the same time. So being able to partner with someone that currently has federal contracts can be very helpful. The other thing that I asked you ahead of time, and you said it was okay to share, is that, oh wait, we have a question. Okay, so Albert, you had other suitors trying to contract with you. How did these other suitors come about?
Again, word of mouth. Once I was letting it known that I wanted to partner up with other people, the word gets around, and that's how that came about. But again, it took a while to even meet with some folks, and after a while, you just kind of figure what direction you want to go, who has the most in common, who is successful, who has the integrity, and who has the financial assistance that can help you, because you're a small business for a reason, and your bank account is not going to be able to handle a lot of things right away that you want to go after. So everybody has to meet these criteria for CPM to hook up with. So, but when it came down to Ben was the best choice for us. Awa was the best choice for us.
And since getting into the mentor, and since having the mentor protege agreement and the joint venture agreement, The joint venture has been awarded a contract. So do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we were lucky enough to get the contract, one of the companies for the MAC contract at Right Pat, which we have been awarded a job at the MAC, through the MAC so far, and that's just since January. And it's starting to kick off out there where there's a job out there to look at every other week. So we feel like we can get our share. We have our target of share of jobs. We like to, you can't do them all, but there's share of jobs that we would like to try to bid on. So that contract is a good stepping stone. It has areas that I'm strong in that needed my advice and areas that Ben is strong in.
So that's important. Both of you are adding your capabilities to the relationship.
Exactly.
For those on the webinar that don't know what a MAC contract is, that is a multiple award construction contract, and it is at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So instead of one, it's a combination of task orders. So Wright-Patterson awards one large contract for construction work around the base. And then there are a finite number of awardees on that contract, and then they award tasks under that contract. So I don't know the types of work that you're seeing, if they're facilities maintenance or roof replacements or HVAC, plumbing, new building construction, or what types of work is it? Just
it's a little bit of everything. There's HVAC replacement, chiller replacement. There's firewalls that have to be built. There's contracts coming out for the memorial for the Wright brothers to be repaired. So there's multiple tasks of work. There's different types.
And it's just a matter of being able to work together on putting the proposals together for those task orders.
Correct.
Do you have some best practices that you can share with businesses that are considering the Mentor Protege program?
Well, one of the best practices, where I look at it, was communication. You got to be able to communicate and get along with the person that you work with. And there is no dumb questions. The best practice I have is I will ask until I can't ask anymore, because there's no shame of not knowing. Not knowing could cost you a job. If you thought I should ask this, but you didn't, then come to find out, it comes back to bite you. So the best practice is we try to look under every rock, every stone, and see what's the best way to approach the job, and which best way that both of us can use our strength to make this job be successful.
How often do you meet each other?
Once a week, basically. We see each other once or twice a week. We're on the phone every other day. Yesterday, I think we were on the phone about 5 or 6 times. We had some issues that we needed to get straightened out, some jobs we want to look at. So it takes community. You're going to be married to this person. That's how it is. You're going to be married to her.
Can everybody hear me?
Oh, there he is. Yes.
There you are.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I dropped off here. I don't know what happened.
That's okay.
It's technology.
Yep.
Well, I just wanted to regurgitate and clarify everything that Al said, and that is correct. It's a marriage relationship. You have to be in constant communication for that to work. You have to be candid to each other, and then be able to. So we know how to help CPM, and then CPM knows, okay, how we operate and make sure that they are receiving the help that they need. Now, if other people are listening, I just want to let them know, other companies that are thinking about going into the Mentor Protege joint venture, SBA will lay out the rules, things for your mentor to do and things that you need to do. If you don't have a good communication and understanding with that mentor, it's not going to work. So there's a self-application, to the thing for it to work. So you have to apply yourself. You have to be in constant communication. You have to be asking questions. It's a learning experience. So that's what I found in Al. Al wants to learn this business. He wants to learn about the federal market and what makes it successful and what makes you to fail. And for us, we've been through several government projects, so we know all these things, and that is what we're unloading on him. And you know, thank God, you know, we landed our first project together here on base, and Al is involved. Okay, I'm involved, and he is learning and looking at the whole process from beginning to the end. So I just wanted to, you know, say that out there.
Very good. And we do have a couple of questions from our audience. So do you both identify new opportunities?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we both look at, I'm constantly looking at Fed Connect or, you know, look out there for different jobs. And Ben has a fantastic system set up, a lot of job opportunities come across the desk. And then we talk about them. If it's 10, we try to look at what 7 we could throw out there and what 4 we hope to get. So, you know, we don't pass anything up without looking at it first and trying to see what's best that we can do and do right and benefit both of us.
Very good. And Ben, I have a question that's more geared towards a large business.
Yes.
So why would a larger company want to partner with a small business? What are some of the advantages Mentor Protege program offers as it relates to accessing government contracts?
Well, one of the major advantages, you know, for large firms for venturing into this program, it does provide an opportunity, you know, for the large business to be able to participate in a set aside program that they will otherwise be ineligible. That is one of the good things about this. So while we are giving back, while we are training, while we are coaching, while we are, you know, helping out in the bonding and the financial strength of the joint venture, it does provide that opportunity for us too to be able to participate in those contracts here. That is one of the major advantages.
So just to reiterate, when there is a mentor protege joint venture, if the mentor is a large business, as a large business, they are not able to bid on small business set-aside contracts or 8A contracts or women-owned small business contracts because they don't qualify. So when they form the mentor protege agreement and the resulting joint venture agreement, they can bid along with their protege partner on whatever set-asides that protege is qualified for. So if that protege is a small business, they can bid on small business contracts. But if the protege is an 8A small business, then they can bid on 8A and small business, and so on and so forth. So if they're 8A Hubzone, they can bid on Hubzone 8A and small business. So that is one of the major benefits for a large business to enter into a mentor protege agreement. There is another question. Do you subcontract? So I'm not sure, are you meaning does the joint venture subcontract, does CPM subcontract, does AWA subcontractor?
And the answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. There are some things that we do ourselves and that CPM will handle and that AWA will handle, but maybe there's some special type painting that needs to go, or hanging signs, or, you know, something of an area that's not quite ours. We will subcontract out.
And so and then there was a, what, can you tell us again what CPM stands for?
Complete professional maintenance.
Okay, very good. Do you have, does anyone have any questions, additional questions to ask of our mentor protege partners? And really, there's no such thing as a bad question, especially when you're getting started here.
Exactly.
There's just a lot to know, a lot to consider. And it's really, the relationships can work, but it's like what Al and Ben both said, you have to be prepared to communicate with each other often. And so and also it's great to make sure ahead of time that the company cultures align, because we can make a recommendation, we meaning SBA or we meaning Ptac, and say, hey, this company, it would be great for you to partner with. But if the company cultures don't align, then it's not going to make a good relationship. So those are the types of conversations you would have with each other. So also Al and Ben, a couple have asked to be able to reach out to you. So would you mind putting your email address in the chat? Can you do that, or do you mind if I put your email address in the chat?
Go ahead and put mine in there. That'd be great.
Yeah, go ahead and put mine in there as well, Jill. You have my permission.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember, it's Albert Powell.
Al.Powell
Okay.
at cpment.com.
And Ben, it's Ben at Awa Construction.
It's Ben at awa-construction.com.
Okay. Thank you. How do we apply to be eligible for 8A and Hubzone? Okay, so that's a big question. We do, Shonda and I do trainings on 8A eligibility and Hubzone eligibility. I will have a Hubzone I do have a Hubzone eligibility training on March 25th. But if you send me an email, please, Tiffany, I can get you started on that. I think we have another comment here. I was happy to learn that it took a year before you cemented your joint venture. I work in service-related jobs. How did you work out your contracting agreement? Did you use a lawyer?
Well, I think we worked it out pretty much. Me basically reading everything and taking things to my attorney because I wouldn't recommend anybody just taking the handshake and let's go to business. This is business, and you have to take that thing. But we kind of knew going in. We were 99% on the same page. It was just a formality for us, actually.
Ben, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so did you want to add anything, or that was good?
Yeah, no, I concur with what Al said. We were 99% on the same page. So getting our respective councils to look at that and make sure that everything that we are saying and, how we plan to approach a project, that everything is legal and satisfy the requirements of the SBA. And that's what we do. I mean, on every submittal, that's what we do. The SEBA project, that went in yesterday, and our council looked at everything just to make sure that what we're saying, that everything passes the legal test, if you will.
And that's also a very large contract that could result in a lot of work for the joint venture. So.
Yes.
And again, it sounds like you're focusing on larger contracts, the IDIQ or the higher past performance requirements contracts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead, Joe.
We have a question. What is the name of your joint venture?
CPM/AWA, AWA.
And you can choose whatever name you would like to have for your joint venture agreement, but it makes sense to have the parties to the joint venture in the name of the business. It's not a requirement, but you can do that. And again, you have to set up a separate bank account, separate EIN, separate DUNS number, separate SAM registration, all of that for your joint venture.
Hey, Jill, I have a question, if now's a good time.
Sure.
Yeah, my name's Sean Hayden. I'm with Dynotech. We're an architectural and engineering firm. But, and I apologize if you guys addressed this. There was a couple minutes where I was on emails, so I don't think you answered this question. But regarding the mentor protege and then the joint venture, am I correct that when you apply to be a mentor protege, that process takes 105 days. And then you're saying after you get approved there, you then have to form a joint venture as well. Is that right?
You can be forming the joint venture agreement at the same time as you're going through that 105 days.
Okay.
Because it takes a while. I mean, I just,
Right.
yeah. So as soon as you submit that application to SBA, just plan on getting in, you know, so
Okay.
you can go ahead and get your tax ID and get file the business name and registering and SAM, have everything ready to go.
Okay.
Can you officially use the joint venture agreement until your mentor protege agreement is approved? If it's a large, small relationship, then no. But if you are partnering with another small business, you don't need the mentor protege necessarily for that.
Okay. Okay. And just to follow up there, something that just occurred to me. I know we can only form a mentor protege 2 times. But regarding joint ventures, I think you guys hit on this, but I just can't remember. We have a joint venture that we formed specifically to go after a NASA project. And to your guys' point, just to add credence to what you guys were just saying about that joint venture really needs to be a good culture fit. And I would add a good personal relationship fit, just because there's certain things like, for example, something as simple as the other person might not be as responsive on the phone when you want him to be. That just kind of sours you. You're like, man, I've been trying to get a hold of him and I can't get a hold of it. You know, just things like that
Right.
Can make a big difference. So what that led to is we've kind of just let that joint venture just kind of sit on the sidelines and we haven't done anything with it. So I'm wondering if I and we need to kind of address that. Will that hinder us in any way? Is there a limit to the joint ventures we can form? I don't think there is there?
No, well, and with the new rules, so essentially, once you form a joint venture with a partner, now you can bid on any number of opportunities, and now you can be awarded any number of opportunities, but it's over a 2-year period. Yeah. So after the 2 years starts the date of your first award.
Okay.
So so you may have a joint venture agreement that just kind of sits there, and but the clock doesn't start ticking on that 2 years until the first award. Okay. Once that 2 years is up, you can form a second joint venture. But back to your earlier point, if you're not having good communication with your joint venture partner, especially if it's a mentor protege, that's when you do the evaluation on an annual basis. And if your mentor partner is not providing that business assistance, then that's a problem because it really is a business development program. So, and I understand the relationship starts with the best of intentions, but truly the mentor protege is the business development of that firm, of the protege.
Right.
So
this one wasn't. This one
okay.
wasn't.
Okay. So if it's just a small business to small business, and SBA doesn't get involved with that as much. Yeah. So, but certainly if you're not getting the communication with your partner that you need to, how is it going to be if you do get a contract together? Because we teach so much about getting that relationship started, but nothing really. And okay, now you have a contract. So that changes everything.
Right.
So we have another question regarding if your joint venture is populated or unpopulated. Now, regulations now state that joint ventures are unpopulated. And then she's got like a pretty specific billing question. I don't know. Can you reach back to the individual companies for business systems and build a joint venture contract? I'm not quite sure. The joint venture agreement is billed, correct? My understanding is that like once there is a contract in place and the joint venture agreement is billed, not the individual companies.
Sure, you're right, correct.
Okay. What does populated or unpopulated mean? Okay, a populated joint venture would be if there are employees of the joint venture rather than employees of the partners to the joint venture. Unpopulated means that the employees are either employees of they're employees of the individual businesses rather than the joint venture itself. Hopefully that was clear. Okay. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you. We've gone about 12 minutes over. So I just think that it's an important topic. I'm always glad to have some of our small businesses involved, so I appreciate it. And are there any further questions?
I just like to make a final comment.
Absolutely.
It's just basically, I want to just encourage everybody that's in any type of program and that you have to stay involved. If SBA is offering something, I know in our new climate, we can't get together like we did in my first 2 years, come to Columbus for meetings with different organizations. If Ptac is having something, this is how you meet people, job fairs, things of that nature. Even if it's not even in your area, NASCO, go up and come talk to people. Let people know who you are, because you never know when that opportunity is going to come around that you can say, I met somebody that's in that area. Let me talk to them. Keep your business card, pass it on. And whatever you do, be patient. I can't say that enough. I'm a football coach, basketball coach. Patience is not my strong suit. But in business, in this business, you have to be patient. So good luck to everybody.
Absolutely. And just back to the mentor protege, you know, is it really taking 105 days? Yes, unfortunately. So just patience is a virtue, but there are things you can do in the meantime while you're waiting. So if you're waiting for a joint venture agreement, continue to meet with Ptac, continue to see what opportunities are out there. Don't just put all of your eggs in one basket and go after one requirement. Try more than one. I mean, you mentioned, Al, that you and Ben looked at 10 opportunities, 10. And then you're like, okay, which ones can we do? Which ones do we need? That's the go or no go. So which ones make sense? Which ones don't? Because I had another firm that said they had like a 10% win rate. So out of every 10, they would win one. So, and they were happy about that. So you just got to keep going. All right.
Speaking of go and no go and capture management, Jill.
That's right.
That's a great segue to talk about next month's training.
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ben. It's just it's great to see you. Ben is an 8A graduate, and I don't get to work with him as often, but it's always great to see him. Yes, Shonda, we do have trainings next month, and our wonderful Billy Grill is going to be presenting on, we're actually doing a series on capture management. So what is capture management? Is how do you find opportunities and build a pipeline of federal solicitations to bid on? So we are in the final stages of planning these, so we don't have like registration links for them yet, but they are going to be April 15th, one in the middle, and April 27th. There's 3 of them, but we will get more information to you so that you have time to plan for that.
And then also, Billy has a great training about SAM registration and some updates. If Billy's still on, if you want to give a plug for that. That's coming up, I think, in the next couple of days.
Oh, certainly. It's tomorrow from 1 to 3 with the Air Force Research Lab Small Business Hub Collider Series. It's about how to use USA Spending and Beta.SAM to do that market research and to look at who's buying what you're selling, to look at potential teammates and potential competitors, potential primes, and then to look at upcoming events, because we all are virtual now. So, keeping in touch, like Al said, is very important. And upcoming opportunities and how to save those, follow those, get email updates on those, and basically from soup to nuts, how to do that market research and start building that marketing and outreach plan and that pipeline.
All right. Well, very good. I will not keep anyone else any more time. We're getting into the lunch hours. So thank you, everyone. And I hope that you can join us for either Billy tomorrow or one of the trainings that we're having next month. And I put my email address in the chat. If any of you have any questions regarding small business programs, I'd be happy to talk to you about those. Thank you, Shonda. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ben and Al. Everybody, Billy.
Thank
All
you.
right. So we'll just
Thank
go
you.
ahead and end here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
That's
Okay.
great. Thank
Yep.
you.
All righty.
Thanks,
Bye.